Hello, history scholars. Mrs. Olson here. Today's lesson is titled Letter from King Affonso I to King John III of Portugal. And the learning target reads, Analyze a primary source to understand European dominance in Africa. Now, when we analyze something, we are picking it apart. We are looking at it from different angles. We're trying to understand all of the details of that source. I'm going to go over primary and secondary sources in a second, but we are going to be looking at this source, this document by an African king, to understand European dominance. So Portugal in the 15th century is very powerful, and they're one of the countries that is trying to take over and control parts of Africa. So clicking on the primary source brings you to this letter. Now, a primary source is one that is just like this. A primary source is created. In this case, the letter was written in the time period 1490 about this time period, whereas a secondary source might be a section out of our Apex textbook. Now, a textbook provides valid information. There is, I'll bring this in closer, there is good information, information for us to learn about history or anything, and it is something that we can count on. But it was not written in this time period. It was written obviously in modern times, so it's considered a secondary source. Okay, back to the primary source written by King Affonso. This is the introduction to the letter. Then you are going to see two images. One is this crucifix, read the details, and the other is this painting so you can get the likeness of King John III of Portugal. The next three paragraphs are the letter that King Affonso wrote to King John. So if you would like to hear me read this out loud, there is another link for a video lesson on the lesson page. Okay? Now, going back to the lesson page, if you click next, you'll be able to get a link to the assignment, which I already have pulled up, and you will answer 6 questions in this source analysis. So what type of source is this? You are going to write that it is a letter written. Actually, you can say, because that's the next answer, it is a primary source, which is a letter. Okay? Now, who created this primary source and when? Always keep your tabs up until you're done with them. So, King Affonso I wrote this, and in this very first introduction paragraph, it tells you that, as can be seen from his letter to King John III of Portugal in 1526. So, coming back over to the assignment, who created this primary source and when? This is where you are answering that King Affonso wrote it in 1526. Okay, now the context question, what was going on in the world when the letter was written? So use what we have learned so far in our world history course to tell me what was going on in the world at the time that King Affonso wrote this letter. Okay? What prior knowledge do you have of this subject? Now, after you read the letter, you are going to see that it talks about Portugal. It talks about freedom. It talks about these officials having a lot of power. It talks about abundance. I'm not going to do the second and the third paragraph, but what you want to do with this question is, what do you already know about what King Affonso has written about. Now, here I said always connect some thread of information to the source. You can tell me any kind of connection as long as you are able to explain the connection to the source. Now, I know it might sound silly, but if you think that Twinkies have something to do with King Affonso's letter, tell me what that connection means to you. Now, that's a silly example, but all I'm saying is that if you have a connection that reminds you of something that King Affonso was trying to write about, trying to convey and get King John III to understand, then tell me what that is. Okay? The fifth question, what is the point of view of this source? What was King Affonso's point of view? And I said use details from the source to explain. So you could use quotes, you could use pieces of sentences as evidence in number 5 that explains what King Affonso's point of view was. And the last one, this is where you are explaining how this source contributes to our understanding of history. So in the context of the 1500s and European dominance, I'm going to go back one moment, European dominance in Africa, how does King Affonso's letter help us to understand what the Europeans were doing as far as dominance and control and power in Africa? Okay, so you will probably use a few sentences to answer number 6. All right, guys, I hope that helps in understanding how to complete this primary source analysis. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.